Hello there, welcome to Genesis Models. My name is Bo Waldron and welcome to the Avenger build episode 2. In this episode we are going to be doing some spraying. We're going to be sort of priming these up, spraying them up, glossing them up, sort of kind of basic ish stuff, but we're going to concentrate on our instrument display panel, sort of showing you some nice little tricks on how to, you know, paint those dials in. You know, maybe not to like a massive professional standard, people who can really sort of paint those dials in, but some little tricks in which we can sort of easily paint them in and give us that illusion of like hand painted dials, which hopefully you're sort of liking. I mean, it's not like brilliant, shall we say, but it's nice little tricks to sort of show a bit of a detail, sort of a bit of a Mona Lisa kind of thing. You know, from a distance it looks good, but if you kind of zoom right in on a 4K camera, maybe it's not so good, but you know, looking pretty good so far. Now, moving along from episode 1 where we was working on our ejector pin marks. Now, as you can see, I have now sanding them down. Now, what I've just gone off and done, I've sprayed them. Now, the whole idea of spraying is that we can notice things like this. Right? Hopefully you can see, filled in the ejector pin mark, sanded it, sprayed it. I can now see that ejector pin mark is still showing that little bit. Right, so with situations like this, it's plain and simple. You know, you go back and you repeat the process. Let's get filling, let's get sanding. On the opposite side here, you can see that I have been taking care of some of our sanding just here. Now, yes, you are going to sort of rub away the Tamiya masking tape a little bit. Don't worry about that. I mean, you're going to do it a bit. The whole idea is it is going to protect it somewhat, at least. So as you can see, we've still got our detail just here, maybe been rubbed a little bit, but not as much as we didn't have the Tamiya tape there. Good idea, you know, once you've sort of done it, because we've got that detail there, I like to get out a toothbrush and just sort of brush out any sort of filler that has maybe gone into these recessed rivets or recessed panel lines, just so as, you know, it doesn't turn into filler. Because when we spray on top of sanding dust that's gone into recessed rivets and panel lines, it can turn into a filler and fill them in, and we don't want that. So always good to brush them away. And again, it's just, you know, nice airbrush here with just black paint in. I can just quickly spray that on, and immediately that's going to tell me what work have I got left to do. Right, and as you can see, you can just see that ejector pin mark still there, so a bit more filling, a bit more sanding. Also a nice little tip is as well, get out a little sanding stick. I know we've sprayed it black, but we can really tell even more by just simply sanding away. What we should see, if we give this a bit of a sanding, right, because we're sanding a flat sanding stick onto this, we should see problem areas, is the theory. Right, so I'm just sanding away at this, and what we should see is the problem areas that we can see now is we've sanded most of that away, but because whatever's recessed, we're not going to sand away as quick as what is above the surface. So we can sort of see that on this ejector pin mark, it's more where you see the black bits, you know, that's where we kind of need to fill. So it just gives us that little bit of an indication. Now, we do have just here our nice bit of scratch building that we've got to do now. It's kind of quite easy. It's a nice easy bit of scratch building. I've got this stuff is rather cool. You get it from pretty much most hobby shops, and it's just loads of styrene plastic. You know, there's no real sort of manufacturer. You just kind of got to search around hobby shops or online stores. And what we have here is just lots of styrene strips of squares, rectangles, circles, you know, of all different sizes and thicknesses. Really cool to get your hands on. I have selected one specifically for this. Now, I just want to make sure my end is nice and flat, so I'm just going to give it just a little bit of a sanding here. Right, we don't want sort of no poorly cut bits, so if I make sure it's nice and flat, it's just going to look a bit better. Right, and then what we're going to do is sort of get we'll just cut off a little bit, an overextended piece, right? And all we got to do is place this in the position that we want it. Right, maybe come in with a little tool just to position that, and that looks like a really good position. Right, and then I'm just going to glue this in with some Tamiya extra thin cement. Just run that all the way along there. Right, and all I'm going to do now is let that dry. Once it's dried, I'll cut that little bit of excess off, so we get a nice clean cut, but you've got to wait for it to dry before you could cut that off. And really, for that little bit of scratch building, all we need to do then is select another piece that's going to go, remember there was 2 little lines going across this way. Do exactly the same with that, and that then sorts out our ejector pin mark that was embedded within all that detail. Not too, I mean, it's not something you want to be tackling, but you know, it's not majorly hard. So that is basically it for all the ejector pin marks on this kit, which there is a lot, and I'll take care of them off camera. So I've got all my parts here all nicely sort of primed up. Little bit of a tip, I mean, cocktail sticks, stick them anywhere where you can just have it nice and hands-free. Even these locking tweezers, really good one as well. What we're going to do now is sort of put our coat that we're going to be putting down, but we'll do a quick colour change. With a colour change, nice and easy, we can get some, I use homebrew airbrush cleaner, but I mean, you know, Vallejo does a nice airbrush cleaner if you're interested. We could pinch the end with a kitchen paper towel, just gurgling that up, really sort of nice, easy, cleans it up. Right, tip it upside down, yeah, so we get all any sort of bits coming out the colour cup end. Right, it doesn't bode well when, you know, you try and get bits to spray through a 0.4mm needle or smaller. Right, and I'm not even going to spray through yet. I always do like a second blast, gurgling it up before I start blasting it through the needle end, just to make sure, and we're just cleaning that all up. Right, again, tip it upside down, and this is just a nice quick colour change. I mean, really, you know, you do want to sort of clean your airbrush completely, but when you're on the go and going for it and you've already got a clean airbrush to start with, this is a nice quick easy colour change. I'm just pinching the end of the nozzle here just to get any dried up bits off of there, and then I'll put my cap back on. Then you can just start spraying through whatever's in there. Now I do normally use this pale green by Vallejo Model Air, which is 095, but I've ran out of this stuff, so I'm compensating and I'm doing XF71 by Tamiya, their cockpit green. Still a nice colour, right? I mean, I've already done one here, as you can see, it's a nice cockpit green just there. This is basically done in the same way. You give these pots a good shake when it comes to Tamiya, right? And we open them up. Right, again, we'll start off with homebrew thinners. You know, that's a video you might want to go check out if you haven't already. Right, and we're doing a 50-50 mix here. Right, and we're just going to pour this in. About a 50-50 mix. Right, we always sort of test, do a quick test spray, and that'll sort of tell you and indicate that you've got about a 50-50 mix. Right, I mean, I don't go off and sort of use pipettes and try and, you know, do it that way, all scientific and mathematical. About 50-50 mix, just mix it all up, right? You know, kitchen paper towel, we can just test and sort of see how that's flowing through. That looks like that's flowing very nicely. Then we can get our piece here, and again, we're just going to start off with that light misty coat. Again, looking at this light misty coat, we just kind of hardly see it go down, you know, a lot of that grey is still coming through. Again, it just helps it stick, and it just dries so quickly because it's so misty that we could just jump straight in there and do a normal light coat. And this is where you start to see the colour coming through. Again, you start seeing it get a bit wet, you know, move along. Right, and as you can see from that, you know, it's a little bit wet all over, and that's where you want to sort of stop. There's your light coat done, and I'll just probably maybe one more coat actually will probably get us good coverage on that also. So now we have some nice good coverage with our cockpit green there, and it's had a bit of time to dry. Crikey, this is really, oh, flipping heck. After a bit of struggling trying to get this off, right, we have here some intermediate Guyuzi agent, really nice gloss coat in which to protect your work. Right, I've done a quick colour change and we're just going to pour this in here. Now when it comes to Tamiya, I do find Tamiya paints, they are good paints, but they are a little bit sort of temperamental, like easily scratched and everything after you've sprayed them. So it is good to seal, you know, Tamiya paints in with a gloss coat, but it's good to seal all of them in really, because we're going to be doing weathering on top of here, and we want to protect it from, because we're going to be using enamel based weathering products in a bit, and it's going to just help nicely seal it all in and protect it. As well as what it also does is it helps because it makes the surface nice, smooth and shiny, it allows the flow of the washes. So what we're going to do here, again, same sort of thing. I'm not going to bore you, you know, do that light misty coat, let it dry, and do about 2 light coats until that's got a nice bit of coverage and it looks a little bit shiny and nice and protected. Now, while all our pieces dry, you want to make sure they're dry, because when it comes to washes, you don't want to be putting, you know, enamel-based washes on top of wet paint or uncured paint. So I'm going to let that dry. But what I want to do is want to go look at our instrument display panel here. We don't have any fancy photo etch or fancy decals or anything like that to put on here. What I want to try and do, I mean, normally I'd kind of just like paint these dials in white and just leave them kind of just like a flat white. I want to try and sort of show you, you know, kind of really trying to paint the dials in and all this stuff, really sort of fine intricate detail. Now I know there's people out there steady hands and they're really good at it and whatnot, and I've seen some amazing work out there, but I want to show you a tip or two to kind of at least make it look like it from maybe a little bit of a distance, so to speak, to not look so bad. So what we want to do here is, right, let's get out some white. I've got some nice 001 white Model Air by Vallejo, right, and I'm just gonna put this on our little base just here. Then I'm getting out some homebrew thinners. I'm using homebrew thinners because a lot of it's water, but there's, you know, one part of it is IPA. It just helps it flow a bit. So I'm just gonna place this on here as well, like sort of next to the color, so we bring the thinners and our white together. So we've got this kind of, we kind of end up with a sort of nice milky sort of consistency, right? And what we're gonna do, right, and this is hopefully going to do a bit of good camera work here. What we're going to do is, if we just take one of these dials and just try and touch that in there and see how that flows around the edges, just like that. See how that's just kind of painted in all the edges? And that's a little bit too strong, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get my paintbrush, remove it of any paint, and I'm just going to try and very carefully just sort of try and suck up the middle a little bit, right, and just sort of trying to dry up the paintbrush, and basically I'm just trying to remove some of this paint, right, because at the moment, as you can see, that's maybe a little bit too much in your face. So I'm just sucking that up a little bit, and then what we have there, hopefully as you can see, is basically the sides are nicely perfectly painted in, just a bit like the one that I've done just there. So then this is where we could come in with a little bit of black, right, and we could pour a little bit of that as well, right, just nice and neat. Actually, these are quite nice to paint straight out of the pot, right. And what we're going to do, just to sort of give it this illusion that we're after, I'm just going to now paint, say, the bottom bit here, right, and by painting that bottom bit, hopefully what you're seeing here is almost a little bit like a half moon kind of going on. So although we haven't painted in all those little notches that go all the way around like an instrument display panel dial thing that we've got going on there, it's just a line, but because it's so small, I know this is a 4K camera and you're seeing this up close and it's like, whoa, you know, that doesn't look too good. But you know, if we sort of come out, right, to a bit of a distance, you know, we're kind of seeing what looks a bit like an illusion of all those little notches that go all the way around, if you know what I'm on about. Then, you know, this is kind of like the tricky bit, right? Clean off your paintbrush. Maybe we could put like some sort of a line through it, you know, representing one of those little dial arm things. You know, make sure you haven't got too much on your paintbrush, because we want this to be quite fine, right? And I'm trying to keep you on camera and paint this myself, and I just want to sort of paint from the middle and just in any sort of random direction, sort of paint across like so. Now, as you can see, I've made a mistake, but I've kind of deliberately made a mistake. I don't want to really try and get it perfect straight away. Going off like that, no big deal. We can come back to our black paint and we can just paint out that little bit of a mistake, right, just like that. So, you know, you make mistakes like that. I mean, it's kind of a deliberate mistake, but now you could see a little sort of arm in our little dial there, right? And if we sort of kind of come back, you know, you could start to see these dials start to build up. Now, you know, once we've done all of them and there's loads on there and all the details on there and the washes on there, you know, hopefully this will look quite cool. But that's just like one sort of nice trick. You could do the same with others. I mean, we could do one where, say, you know, one of these dials, it's sort of just half and half, right? So if we kind of just try and paint a line across, right, and maybe one of them's just half painted. Now, as you can see, you know, again, I've just kind of gone off and, you know, because this is nicely recessed, it does help us. So if we come back in with the black, we can very neatly sort of paint this up because it's recessed, and as you can see, one of them's sort of like half done like so. And just kind of look at reference photos, sort of look at the different patterns, and just kind of use these sort of little tricks, right, to try and represent them as best as you can, so that when we're sort of looking at it from like a proper eye distance, not zoomed in on a camera, actually it looks kind of quite cool. And that's sort of like some nice quick sort of tips, tricks, sort of, you know, basics of just getting something looking quite cool where you know, we haven't got decals or you know, photo etch and all that kind of cool stuff. But, you know, I quite like it. So I'll continue doing these and then we'll do some washes. So there's some dials nicely painted in. As I say, you know, if we sort of zoom out, so it's kind of like, you know, you look at it from a bit of a distance, it's sort of, you know, you can see like a bit of an illusion of nice detail there. But, you know, we've got other things that we could do here. I mean, you know, just to kind of more detail we add, the cooler it looks. I mean, just getting a paintbrush, you know, I'm using the neat white paint from Vallejo here, and just things like, you know, here's like a little button. Right, because they're nice and raised, we should hopefully be able to just almost touch them, and we've got ourselves a little button painted in here and there. Looking at some reference photos, you know, we can, you know, paint certain bits that need to be red and all that kind of stuff. We've even got these, they're like little cards. I've painted it white, as you can see there, but this is a cool little pen. It's a micron of 0.005, really sort of fine kind of pen. This kind of stuff's cool for, you know, there's supposed to be some writing in here. If you sort of really sort of carefully just do some sort of, you know, little dots and dashes, maybe little squiggles, right, we can sort of create a bit of illusion of like there's some sort of writing in there, which I know if we sort of zoom in it doesn't look too good, but, you know, looking at it from a bit of distance, you know, we could see like there's some sort of writing going on just there. So I'll just finish off sort of kind of painting in sort of like buttons and the dials, and, you know, where I can write stuff, we'll write stuff, and hopefully that should start to look quite cool. It'll blend in a bit sort of nicer and better when we do some weathering and we sort of put gloss on the dials and stuff, which, you know, hopefully, you know, should hopefully sort of kind of bring it out to be quite a nice display panel that's been painted freehand. Now sadly we've come to the end of this episode 2. So in episode 3, you know, I'm kind of anticipating that we're obviously going to be jumping in with some washes. I do want to try out these washes here by Humbrol. I don't feel like I give them enough love, so we'll just try them because I don't normally use these, but it's nice to kind of try different products, even though maybe I'm not 100% about using them, but we'll give them a go. And then I'll probably be off camera sort of doing some building there. But I did buy in some of these. I was thinking I wouldn't mind putting some pilots in here, so I've got some of these PJ Productions, and we've got 2 types of pilots. Let's zoom you out a little bit. 2 types of pilots here. I'm going to see if we can get the gunner in there. I don't know if we can get the gunner in there because it does seem quite ram-packed full of like stuff in there, and I don't know if a gunner's going to fit in there, but we should be able to get our pilot in there. You know, so I don't know, maybe episode 3, episode 4, you know, we'll do some actual figure painting as well, because I do want to get a nice pilot in there. But sadly that has come to the end of episode 2. Hopefully you'll be around for episode 3. So as always, until next time, my name's Bob Waldron, this is Genesis Models, and I hope you've enjoyed.